Let's talk about one of the biggest questions out there. What does it actually mean to be human? Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating philosophical conversation that gives two totally different answers. We're going to explore what it means to be free, what it means to be alone, and how we find our purpose in all of it. So let me ask you something right off the bat. Are you the sole, absolute author of your life story? Or are you more of a co-author, working with everything and everyone that came before you? Your answer to that question puts you right in the middle of a huge debate we're about to unpack. All right, so to really get into this, we've got to start with one of the biggest ideas of all, freedom. How do these two ways of thinking even understand what it means to be free? Okay, so for the existentialists, their whole thing is captured in this one killer phrase: existence precedes essence. What does that even mean? Well, it's basically saying we're not born with some pre-installed software, no divine purpose or instruction manual. We just show up first, and then we figure out who we are by living, by choosing. It means we're radically free. But, and this is the big but, that freedom comes with this huge weight of responsibility. We have to create our own meaning, totally from scratch. And what's so fascinating is how this idea of freedom completely changes how you see the future. I mean, look at this. For an existentialist, tomorrow is a totally blank page. You're creating it out of thin air. But for a process theologian like Alfred North Whitehead, he saw things differently. For him, reality is this big, interconnected, always evolving process. So the future isn't some empty void. He called it creative novelty. See, you're not just inventing things from nothing. You're taking everything the past has given you and building something genuinely new with it. And this difference, this whole idea of a blank slate versus building on the past, it doesn't just shape our view of time, it completely changes how we see our relationships with each other. Are we fundamentally alone in this thing, or are we all in it together from the start? The existentialist Martin Heidegger, he gives us this really stark, kind of grim picture of life. He calls it being toward death. Just think about that. He sees our existence as this lonely solo journey, a straight line from our own birth to our own unavoidable death. From this point of view, being alone is the most fundamental, basic fact of your life. But then, Whitehead comes in and just flips the whole thing on its head. He says, look, the most important thing isn't my single lonely death. The bigger, more fundamental fact is perpetual perishing. I love that phrase. It means everything is constantly in a state of becoming something new and then passing away. We're not just individuals dying, we are part of a universe that is always dying and being reborn, moment to moment. And right here, this slide just lays out the difference perfectly. For Heidegger, you start as an individual. You're this lonely self who just happens to be sharing a world with other lonely selves. But for Whitehead, it is the complete opposite. We start in community. That's our ground zero. We only become these unique individuals because of our relationships, because we participate in the world around us. So for him, individuality isn't where you begin, it's what you achieve. You know, this even changes how we look at our own pasts. The existentialist Rudolf Bultmann, he saw the past as this collection of deep habits, maybe even baggage, that we have to break free from to find our true, authentic selves. But Whitehead, he saw the past as the very thing we're freed for. It's the raw material, the clay, the stuff we use to create a new and better future. It's not a prison cell. It's a workshop full of tools. Okay, so to really, really get what Whitehead is talking about with this community-first self, we have to zoom way, way out. He's making this incredible argument that our very consciousness, the thing that makes us, evolved over millions of years. And it didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened in response to the world and to each other. He lays out this deep history in 4 big steps. First, it all starts with ritual, these shared habitual actions that keep a group together. Then, those rituals stir up powerful emotions, making the group more sensitive, more alive. From there, beliefs and myths start to bubble up to try and explain those intense shared feelings. And then finally, you get rationalization. This is where philosophy and religion come in, trying to organize all those beliefs into a neat, coherent system. You see, our individual minds are literally built on a foundation of shared experience. And this whole process builds on an even deeper timeline of awareness itself. I mean, think about it. The basic animal experience is all about survival, right? Reacting to stuff. But then, at some point in evolution, something new emerges, a psyche or a soul. It's this central hub that starts pulling experiences together, not just to survive, but for its own enjoyment. And consciousness? That's the moment the psyche turns inward. and starts to become aware of its own inner world. But here's the twist. This incredible new form of awareness, it didn't come for free. It came at a huge cost. It actually led to this profound break, a massive split in how humans experience the world. This moment has a name, the Axial Revolution. Thinkers like Karl Jaspers pinpoint this era as a time when humanity's entire way of seeing the world just shifted on its axis. Rationality, the conscious mind, it took over. It became the boss, separating itself from that more primal, instinctual way of experiencing the world through the body. So, and this is the really critical point, this revolution wasn't just a leap forward. In a way, it was also a kind of fall. The self became an outsider, an observer looking at the world instead of being a participant in it. This is the moment in history when that isolated, lonely self that the existentialist talks so much about was born. So faced with this new feeling of being alone, of being separate, different cultures around the world came up with three big models, three different paths to try and figure out who we are and how to feel whole again. And this table just lays them out so clearly. In India, the idea was that the true self was pure, but it got corrupted by the physical world. So the goal was to break free and realize that pure, unchanging self, the Atman. Over in ancient Israel, the self was all about its relationship to a divine will, to Yahweh. The goal was obedience. And then you have the West, where the self became seen as this rational will, an agent of choice whose main job was to behave ethically. And it's really this last one, the Western idea of the self as a rational will, that became the default setting for so many of us. It's this common sense idea that a person is basically a free agent, a little pilot in the cockpit of the body, whose job is to use reason to choose between right and wrong. But the text we're digging into here suggests that maybe there's another way, a different possibility that goes beyond all of these models. And here we see what it boils down to, a final choice between two ways of being. And what's cool is it uses existentialist language but flips the meaning. On one side, you have self-preoccupation. This is that lonely, isolated self, trapped in its own head, obsessing over its own failures and successes. But on the other side, love. This is the authentic way of being, where the self opens up to the world, gets freed from that navel-gazing, and can actually turn towards others with real, genuine concern. So at the end of the day, the ultimate goal presented here isn't to become some kind of perfectly rational, decision-making robot. The goal is to become a loving being. The highest potential for a human isn't found in barricading our isolated will, but in tearing down the walls and reflecting a creative, responsive love back out into the world. Which brings us all the way back to the beginning, but with a new twist. We started by asking if you're the sole author of your life story. But after all this, maybe the better question is something else entirely. If our greatest, truest, most authentic self isn't found in radical independence, but in radical connection, what does that ask of us right here today?